Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes on the Rebirth server. We are with our brute Quintessence Lass, who is level 48 with over 31 million experience, earned 2.5 million to go to get to level 49, and our final superpower 53 million influence. And we're on a story arc for Unai Kemen, who says, while you are closing up those dimensional ruptures that opened across the city, Azori has been preparing the spell that will reunite the portal scientists with those scientists whose dimensional fabric was torn in two. She's about ready to fire it up. Maybe, just maybe, we'll learn something. In the meantime, I need you to have a talk with Tina McIntyre, who is an expert on interdimensional travel. I think we're getting toward the end of this story arc. This or next episode will probably be the end of our level 48 adventures. And then I'll stop recording until we get to level 49. At that point, we will be doing one or two more story arcs, and then we are done with this character. And I feel bad in the sense because I really love her, but there's just nothing more to do with her after she's level 50. I don't like doing Incarnate Trial. I don't want to do Incarnate Trials. Let's put it that way. Okay, Tina says, listen, I've been studying what happened to those scientists, and it may be a harbinger of greater dangers to come. I think the scientists were split by a rupture. It opened up right where they were standing, and they were ripped apart at the dimensional seams. I believe that what's happened to those scientists could happen to an entire dimension if those ruptures keep opening in Paragon City. They could end up tearing the dimension to shreds, and that probably means we got to go fight some more ruptures. What am I doing here? Contact. So we return to him, and he says, uh-oh, it looks like it's getting worse. So then he says, according to those scientists who got lost in the multiverse, it sounds like these dimensional ruptures might not be accidental. On the contrary, I think that someone is purposely producing the ruptures in an effort to tear whole dimensions apart. Problem is, we don't know who. Quintessence Lass, I need you to take some readings in some ruptures that have gone around the multiverse. I think this is maybe multiple sequential missions. So we've got a device. I think this is just click the glowies. So as we go, guys, continue our tradition of sort of talking about role-playing game situations, role-playing game theory, whatever you want to call it, etiquette. Talk about etiquette today. I guess it's etiquette. I don't know what to call it. This is a situation I've personally, thank goodness, never come anywhere close to facing. But a poor DM who's, I think, been DMing for about a year ever. So it's some experience, but not a huge amount. And we need to find the glowy, I guess. He seems to be at his wit's end, and so here's the story in brief. And this is from one of the forums I read about role-playing games. It's the D&D Beyond forum. So he says that he was DMing a campaign that was going along pretty well, and one of the players had a friend, a husband and wife couple who were friends with them. Don't know if this particular player was male or female, but obviously it was a husband and a wife. And the two of them were interested in seeing how D&D plays, and they asked if they could sit in on a session and watch. Now, I don't know if these people have been watching, one of the D&D shows. It doesn't sound like it, but I guess they've heard about D&D and they wanted to, learn a little bit about it. And so the DM wasn't sure, but he said, okay, we'll let these guys in. And so they came in and they watched. And he said what happened is the husband was like, I don't know. The wife loved it. She thought it was so awesome and she wants to play. So he said, well, he told the husband, look, the DM said, if you don't want to play, you don't have to. And he told the wife, you can just come. Now, maybe the husband said to the wife, you're not doing it without me. There are spouses that'll do things like that. You're not going to just leave me home every Saturday being bored while you go off to have fun with your friends, kind of thing. Maybe he changed his mind. Maybe she talked him into it. We don't know. But when the time came, she said, we both would like to play. So he set up a 2-hour session before their next session where he made characters with them. And he asked the husband, what he would like, and the husband wanted some sort of a tanky fighter character. So he made up a nice, simple fighter for the guy to play, so that it wouldn't be complicated. There wouldn't be spell slots to worry about. Nice and simple, very effective. Just attack with your weapons, do some damage, attacks of opportunity, that kind of thing. And I don't know what class the wife is playing. I don't think he said. And so so apparently this husband now has been a problem kind of ever since. So he's like just mindlessly attacking things. He said that like the party was negotiating with some. There were some enemy NPCs, and the party decided that they wanted to negotiate, and they were able to negotiate with the enemy NPCs. And the husband's fighter decides he doesn't want to negotiate; he wants to fight them. So he says, "Well, after they leave, I'm going to circle back and I'm going to attack these guys by myself." And the DM was like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Like, your character would be able to see that these guys are probably more than a match for you. I don't care. I attack them anyway." So he knocked him out. You know, he didn't have them finish the guy off. The guy made his death saving throws. Didn't learn his lesson. Later on, they fought a flame skull, and I guess these things, after you kill them, will come back because they're undead. Don't know much about them, but anyway, they defeated it, and they put the dead skull part into their bag of holding or something. And when it resurrected, it broke out of the bag and started attacking them, and they defeated it again. And the husband said, let's just stay here and keep killing it to get the XP." And the GM was like, "It doesn't work that way. You only get the experience the first time you kill it." And the rest of the players wanted to just leave it, and he was like, "Well, I'm going to stay here and fight it and kill it." And so he did. He stayed there. He fought it. He almost died, but he killed it. And then he said, "Okay, I'm going to stay here again and do it again, and I'm just going to keep doing it." And apparently, even the wife was like starting to get annoyed at him. According to the GM, the wife was just like glaring at him and getting very annoyed. And she even said at one point, "Okay, well, we're going to leave you because we don't want to stay here." And he was like, "That's fine. I'll stay behind. I want to fight this thing." And so the DM said, "What do I do?" But then, as he was answering suggestions that people were making, like kill his character off, let him die, don't go easy on him, let the flame skull kill him, and then your problem is solved. Boot him out of the group, have a talk with him, etc. One of the things the GM said in response to the have a talk with him part, and this is, to me, this is a major, major, major issue. This is like as major an issue as you can have in a role-playing game. This is as big a problem as I've ever seen, and thankfully, never seen this. As bad-tempered as the one guy who used to hurl his character sheet across the floor and say, "Fine, let him die, see if I care," may have been, it never went a billionth of a percent this far. The GM said he feels for his own personal safety with this guy, that he's very aggressive, that he's a much bigger, stronger guy than the GM, and he's physically intimidating. That the GM, and a lot of DMs do this at the table, he stands up during combat, and you do that because usually the miniatures and the battle map are on the other side of the DM screen where the players can see it. And if you're sitting down, it's really hard as a DM to see over the DM screen and get a bird's, it's much easier to get a bird's eye view of everything so you can see where all the players and all the monsters are. You also can, if you need to, see the die rolls, help the players calculate things on their character sheet. You can like read over across the table and say, "Oh, this is how you calculate that," right? You're in a position to like lean over the table and help them, which you can't really do from sitting behind the screen completely. And so he said, "I like to stand up," and when this player saw me stand up, he stood up too, and he like towers over me, and he said, "I feel like if he runs away from somebody, and I say this guy gets an attack of opportunity, this player is going to like beat me up." So my response to it was, this is not a viable situation. You cannot game master when you feel like the players are threatening you if you do something bad to their character. That is not even remotely an acceptable situation. You cannot play D&D or any role-playing game that way. You simply can't. And it is completely unacceptable for someone to be physically threatening to the DM. Now, this guy has never, by the DM's admission, this guy has never, and I'm going to just pause this for a sec. Now that we're indoors, we're going to have to fight everybody because we can't just hop around. We don't have invisibility. Um, but at least those other two missions were nice and quick. You cannot. The guy didn't. He never actually threatened the GM, right? He just acted in a manner that the GM felt threatened by. And now maybe the GM is wrong. Maybe this guy wouldn't do anything to him. But if he feels intimidated like that, you cannot GM when you feel intimidated by the players. You simply can't. And it sounds like this guy's almost like bullying him, right? You cannot. It's not acceptable. It simply cannot be done. You cannot GM that way. Do you believe this? What is my 2-hit on this? 10% chance. All right. Well, I guess we'll just stand here and wait. Yeah, you cannot GM under threat like that. So, so yeah, I don't know what to do in this circumstance. Really, I feel like he's in a lose-lose situation. He said the wife is awesome. She's really into it. She's a great D&D player, and we're having a lot of fun with her. But everyone was so he said the session was just miserable because this guy wouldn't stop, you know, and he wouldn't let it go. He kept wanting to fight this flame skull. He wouldn't stop, and he wrecked the whole evening. And everybody was unhappy. People weren't having fun. The other players like left the room for a while he was fighting the flame skull because they were just bored out of their minds. And so it wasn't fun for anybody. And so he's ruining everybody's fun. So he really can't let this continue. But it sounds like he's going to be afraid to confront this guy. I don't know what the answer to that is. I really don't. I hate when I don't have a solution. But the only thing I could suggest to this GM was talk to the wife, right? If she really is a good D&D player, she's enjoying D&D, and she was getting annoyed at her own husband for doing this, maybe you talk to the wife, and you say, "Look, I want to talk to your husband, but he's intimidating me. Like I feel like he's going to beat me up if I tell him that he can't play with us anymore, but he's ruining the game for everybody." And see what she says. I mean, maybe she can talk to him. You know, sometimes a spouse has the power to do stuff that other people don't. I'm just alternating my attacks against these guys until their stupid defenses run out. Because there's no point to attacking somebody who's unhittable. Like, when they've got us floored, there's just no point. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, what he's got to hope, I guess. What? 40% chance to hit, and we're missing 3 times in a row. 4 times in a row. 5 times in a row. On a 40% chance to hit? That's ridiculous. You know, maybe the wife has enough influence over him that she can either tell him you're not playing with us anymore because you're ruining it for me and everybody else, and you just stay home, or she can say, you know, cut it out. I don't like what you're doing to this GM. I mean, I don't know, but I feel bad for the guy because he's in a lose-lose situation right now. Apparently, everybody's sort of friends with the husband and wife outside of D&D, and this is another example of a case where maybe you're friends with the person outside of Dungeons and Dragons, but you're not compatible D&D buddies, and sometimes that happens. And it can be very painful when that happens because you like the person and you want to have them in your D&D group because you like them, but it turns out that they just don't play D&D the way you do. You know, and if the husband is just playing D&D to please the wife, and the wife is now not happy with his D&D play, maybe she'll just say to him, "Look, you're absolved, right? I don't require you to play D&D with me anymore. Just stay home." Maybe, if that's what happened and how he started playing D in the first place, we don't know. there are a lot of unknowns with it, and it really, oops, I hit the wrong thing. It really is a shame when it happens. I really think his best shot is to go to the wife and see if she can maybe exert her spousal influence on her husband. All spouses have some influence on their spouse. Um, most people try not to displease their spouse, and maybe she can talk some sense into him. But I don't know. I have the feeling this is going to be bad news, and unfortunately, it's the kind of thing that can. Here we had a campaign that was working great, and they added these two new players, and one of them might wreck it to the point where the whole thing is so broken that everybody stops playing, and that would be really pretty horrible. When everybody was having fun until 2 weeks ago, So yeah, I don't have any solutions. A lot of times I like to give advice. Okay, guys, here's how to handle it. I don't have a solution for this. I really don't. Um, it's not easy. It's a very difficult circumstance to have somebody that you're friends with in the group who is just completely incompatible with your D&D playstyle, and and you have to have the talk. And it sounds like this guy feels like he can't have the talk because he's afraid of the much sort of larger and more physically imposing. Um, I'm not going to defeat everybody. This isn't a defeat all. He's afraid of the much larger and more physically imposing husband, and that's very tough. But you cannot game master under those circumstances. It's just not viable. The DM cannot feel like he has to be afraid. And there's a boss, so this is going to be fun. I am not going to do the inspirations, I guess, because, well, I guess we can. I'm not sure how much good it's going to do because we're going to have to let him debuff after we get him to the right point. After we get him to the point where he does Moment of Glory or whatever it is. But we got a ways to go for that. Yeah, so it is very difficult. And again, I don't have any easy solutions. And if you guys remember right, my group, and there's a rupture, my group did add a new person who was like really good friends with a previous member, a current person in the group. Said, hey, let's add this friend of mine. And I was very nervous about it because my concern wasn't just, okay, is she not going to work? But if she doesn't work, is the friend who brought her to us going to get mad at us that we decided to boot her friend? It can be very difficult. I think, as much as I prefer playing D&D with friends, sometimes I think with situations like this, it's actually a lot easier to just play with strangers, because at least if a stranger is doing this stuff, you can just tell them to go jump in the lake, right? You're out, you're booted. This actually happened to my best friend. Let's see if we can beat this boss. Here he is. This actually happened to my best friend when there was a husband, and when it was a husband and wife team, but it was both of them were a problem with a paid DM, and he, after a couple of sessions, he had to boot them from the campaign. But like, nobody cared because nobody else was friends with them. However, if the husband had been a problem, or the wife had been a problem and the other one had been good, he would have had an impossible time trying to just boot one of them out, right? You pretty much going to have to either boot them both or keep them both. And that makes it all very difficult, right? Because what's the relationship of the husband and wife going to be if the wife sits there and supports the kicking of her husband out of the group for being a jerk? What's the conversation going to be like on the drive home? What's the conversation going to be like that week in the house or the apartment? It could be pretty ugly. And actually, my best friend, his wife has historically played D&D. In fact, the NPC who's his character's girlfriend is based on his wife's player character, who back in 3rd edition was the girlfriend of his player character back when they played D&D together. And so, like, she could have played that character. She could have played with us. She knows how to play D&D, at least 3rd edition. And I never suggested her to him because he never suggested her. And I figured he knows his wife is there. He knows she's in the apartment with him. He knows she plays D&D, right? So if she wanted to play with us and he wanted her to play with us, presumably he would have suggested it. But every time I said, do you know anybody else who plays D&D? He said no. And once or twice he said, my wife's not a very good role player. And I thought, well, that's a weird statement to make because we've, played with people of different role play skills before. And frankly, the newest player in our group wasn't a very good role player when she started either. And we would have had to know she wasn't going to be because it was her first time role playing. Nobody's a good role player the first time they start. It's impossible. You have to learn how to do it and watch other people doing it and so forth. And I thought it was sort of an odd, she's obviously going to be better at D&D and a better role player than the complete newbie that we're playing with. Right now, the new player has gotten much better at it. Maybe they're equal, maybe she's better, but certainly not back at the beginning. But that was always what he said. And afterwards, I thought, well, maybe it's not that. Maybe he just doesn't want to put her into the group for reasons like this. Because if something happens where, say, he has to support the kicking out of the group of his wife, they live in a little one-bedroom apartment together, and there's a quarantine going on. That's going to make his life hell, right? And hers too. And so it's very dangerous, right? Just like dating a coworker, or like we always used to say when I was a teaching assistant in graduate school, the worst thing you could have in your lab is a boyfriend and a girlfriend who are lab partners. Because then they break up in the middle of the semester and now they don't want to be lab partners, but they have to be because everybody else is already paired up and they don't even want to see each other, right? And one of the TAs actually had that happen to him. And it was not just bad for the two of them, it was miserable for the TA too, right? Which would be like the GM being miserable too. This is a no-win situation, and I really don't have any good answers. We're often looking for players. We want players. You're not going to say no to the person's husband or wife, but if everybody is not going to be really good at getting along and understanding how role-playing games are supposed to work and what the etiquette is, you could have a lot of trouble. So be careful when you're getting your significant other to join a game group. Make sure you're not setting yourself up for a situation like this. Don't ever push or force someone to play a role-playing game with you. The results will always be disastrous. They have to want to do it. They have to love to do it. They have to be saying, is it Thursday yet? Is it Friday yet? Whatever the day is that you play. Now, like our group, it's every other week, and several of the players have expressed, darn, we're sad it's the off week, right? Oh, good, it's the on week. We can't wait to play. That's how everybody has to feel about it. If you're being drag kicking and screaming into D&D or Champions or Call of Cthulhu, it isn't going to work. A couple people have said, oh, you could try this with your best friend and get him to play another game. I'm not pushing him to play another game. I know it won't work. If I drag him kicking and screaming to Savage Worlds, it will not work. He has to say to me, I want to try Savage Worlds, teach me how to play. Then it'll work. And until that happens, I can say to him, here, try watching this show. Try reading the book. Here's the rules. Here you can borrow my book if it's physical and I can hand it to him. And maybe get him interested that way. But you cannot drag somebody, force somebody into a role-playing game. It won't work. They'll just stop showing up. They're not going to be enthusiastic. They'll be miserable. You'll be miserable. And I think that's what's really happening here is that husband doesn't really want to play. And so he's taking his frustration out on the table and everybody else there because he really doesn't want to be there. That's my guess. All right, folks, let's talk to our contact. He says, good work. We've taken care of all those ruptures. How are we doing on time? 24 minutes. Let's go ahead and do another one. Let's see what we say here, what it says here. Okay, so the portal text had a look. Many of the portals seem to originate from a particular dimension, Lambda Row 5720. Around here it's known as Werewolf World. Yeah, okay. Will you go to Werewolf World and see if you can track down Requiem himself? Oh my gosh. We are going to fight Requiem. I don't know if we will. Okay, so we're gonna fight Requiem. We got a whole bunch of inspirations. I think we're probably okay. If he's +3, I don't know if we're gonna be able to beat him, but we'll try, guys. You know, we'll try. If I can't beat him on screen, I'll just stop it and beat him off screen or whatever, and then after I lower the mission difficulty, and then when I bring you back, we'll do the next part of this story arc. It obviously isn't gonna end um, in this episode, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think so, because I think we still have to do stuff with the portal scientists. I'm blanking on how this story arc ends. Maybe it will end with the death of Requiem. I don't really know. We've been able to beat everybody else at +3 as elite bosses, so maybe I'm a little cocky here. Speaking of cocky, moving on to a different subject. Oh man, I am in a state of frustration and love at the same time. I've been rewatching. I started rewatching Star Trek: The Next Generation. I love Star Trek, and I thought, let me see if I can find a Star Trek game to play. Well, there really aren't any that I want to play. Um, and Bridge Crew looks really cool, but Bridge Crew requires to be really played properly requires VR goggles, which I don't have, and a whole bunch of people who have VR goggles, which nobody I know has, and so it might be really fun to do that with my D&D friends if they also like Star Trek someday, if everybody gets VR goggles, but certainly not now. There really don't seem to be any other one. Star Trek Online does not interest me. It's basically Champions Online, which I don't like, set in the Star Trek universe. But I was looking to see if there was just something I could play by myself, and what I really miss and would love to play is Starfleet Command. They have the old version of Starfleet Command on Steam for Windows 7. You can't play it on Windows 10, so that's no good. And what I really want to play is Starfleet Command 2, Empires at War. And that is not available anywhere, as far as I can tell. But somebody in 2017, 2018... Oh, I went out of the... That was a mistake. I didn't mean to go out. I must have gone above the little portal section. Sorry about that. Somebody in 2017, 2018 did a long playthrough of Starfleet Command Orion Pirates with the Orion Pirates Plus mod, which is this mod that updates the graphics and some of the gameplay and the AI and everything and makes it better. And we're going to see if we can find Requiem, but we'll close this portal first. And I was watching him play, and I'm having a blast watching him play because it's such a cool game. But I'm also super frustrated because I really would like to play it. And I thought, man, if I could play it, I could do a let's play of that. That is a fun game. Scar. I don't see Requiem over here. I thought maybe he was here. Let's beat up the boss. I mean, why not? We're here. Yeah, I would love to play that again. It's a super fun game. I always wanted to play other empires, but I always, like, the couple times I played it, I said, let me start as a Federation and do a playthrough, and then I'll play as, like, the Lyrans or the Hydrants or something like that. And always by the time I get done with a playthrough of the Federation, it has taken so ridiculously long, because it's a very long... If you're going to, like, take over the whole universe, it takes a very long time. And I never actually took over the universe. I got to the point where the Federation had basically completely conquered the Klingon and the Romulan empires, and there was just no point, because you're so powerful at that stage that, like, no one else can beat you anyway. So, yeah, I never completely turned the whole map blue, Federation blue. But then every time I was like, okay, let me try the Hydrons or the Gorn or something, I would end up just playing a little bit and be like, I'm sick of it because I played it so much already as the Federation. And I do love the Federation ships the most. They're the coolest looking, and they have the most variety and the most downloadable models and mods that you can create for them. So I like them the best. But yeah, that is definitely a game I would probably enjoy doing a Let's Play of, but I can't. So I've been watching one instead, and that's actually pretty cool. Although the guy does not play the way I would. Somewhat the way I would, but there are certain things he does that I wouldn't do. And sometimes it's a little aggravating when I'm like, no, do it this way. But I'm sure you guys do the same thing with me, right? No, why are you doing that? We all play the game our own way. So Requiem is on that world. What's more, he thinks he can hide himself from us. Well, Requiem is pretty smart, and my guess is if he thinks he can hide himself from us, he probably can. But we'll find that out next time, guys, because we're now at 30 minutes. So we'll stop here, and until next time, I am Scrapperlock. This has been City of Heroes on the Rebirth server.